This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Wait for it. Hold on, wait a minute. There's still a game against Spurs left, Liverpool fans. I'm so sorry, you still need to get that done. But before you do that, welcome to the Daily English Premier League podcast hosted by Michał Czarniecki, brought to you by Global Sports Podcast Network. Super excited to jump on in this podcast. I'm joined by Louie Easton. Prepared a little surprise for you there. I hope it was somewhat pleasant.
We've won the league, mate. We've won the league. Let's not even speculate about a comeback. We've won the league. I have been very, as you know from me coming on this podcast earlier in the season, even like a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Arsenal can still clinch it. Absolutely not. They can only catch us on goal difference. They have to be absolutely perfect. We have to be disastrous, and even then they can only catch us on goal difference. All we need is a point against Spurs or Chelsea or Arsenal or whoever we have for the rest of the season. 1 point and we've won the league. That's it. And we're playing Spurs this weekend. Lads, it's Tottenham. Like, we only need 1 point against them, and they have lost 18 times this season. So we've won the league. I'm sorry.
Smearing the Europa League semi-finalist. Come on, mate.
See, they'll be tired after that as well. There we go. Their thoughts will be on Europa League because it's the only thing they can get for the rest of the season. And wouldn't it be fantastic? Because Arsenal are going to go trophyless for the rest of this season, and Spurs might not. So there's something very exciting happening.
I haven't made it to introduce the rest of the team for today's podcast.
Sorry, you set me off there.
Yeah, I set you off. And to be honest, it was deliberate, so I kind of take it on the chin. Victor and Eshan, those are our American inputs there. Victor from Chicago, Eshan from LA. How you guys doing?
What's up, fellas? Good to see you.
Doing decent.
Changing energy.
Oh, jeez. Victor, what are your thoughts about what's transpired over the last couple hours with the title?
I don't know. I mean, Arsenal can't even deliver a title to Liverpool. Never mind something else.
Just wait until Spurs.
I was secretly hoping they'll lose today, so we can have even happier Louis. But yeah.
Oh, they've lost the title today. Let's be honest.
You could tell this game was. Both teams were not focused on this game. You could tell. Arsenal has Champions League on their mind. Crystal Palace FA Cup, so that's why it was like a combined 11s, I would say.
Can I just say this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Arsenal are not winning the Champions League. They're not even getting to the final. Can I just get that out of the way? They're not.
We'll see.
I mean, I'm sorry, but the way they played, and it's not like they've got Champions League in a few days' time. They've got Champions League next week. They can play. And they didn't really play against Crystal Palace. They were sloppy in defence. We saw that Mateta goal. Unbelievable chip. I'm sure we'll get into this game more. Sorry, I don't want to jump ahead of
You've already
schedule.
hijacked the show. Come on.
Louis, I got to tell you something.
Quit
Louis,
pretending.
Worst teams won the Champions League, a.k.a. Liverpool-Istanbul final. Worst teams
That is
won
true. That is true.
Champions League than Arsenal.
Mate,
this Arsenal
over
team.
2 legs. It's over two legs.
It's so funny because last week it's such a contrast because I was filled with 4 Arsenal fans right after they came back from the Bernabeu, and they were so mad that I even suggested that PSG might win the next game.
Yeah, because Arsenal fans are delusional.
Yeah. I called them
Perhaps.
a few times. I needed to humble them.
Yeah, and they'll be humbled by Ousmane Dembele and Kavicha Kvaratskhelia. We'll all be there.
Wow, Kvaratskhelia, who actually had troubles getting acclimatized with Paris, so that's going to be another, adding more salt to injury, I guess.
Yeah, but he was incredible against us.
He was incredible. He really was. Like he got. It seems that he actually got that steam finally going. But before we move on to some other topics, let's focus on the task at hand, which is to review the game of Arsenal again taking on Crystal Palace. Like we already started talking about it slightly. So I would like to sponsor the review of Arsenal Crystal Palace. I would like to mention that the sponsor of this review is number 9. Why is this the sponsor of this review? It's because tonight was Arsenal's 9th Premier League draw in a match they were leading in this season. 2 more than any other side. It's the most by a team in a season since Spurs in 2007-2008 campaign.
Oh my word.
9. So I think this could be the start of a perfect conversation. I think, Louie, you're going to do just fine with this question. What Arsenal does not have that Liverpool does?
Well, Liverpool will defend to the very end of matches, and they are very reactive to anything that happens in a match. I think the Anfield factor plays a huge part in that because it sort of rallies all the Liverpool players onto the very end, especially if they're kicking towards the Kop end. But I just think Arsenal, they were a bit complacent. We saw them passing out of the back and looking very casual, and I think they sort of underestimated Crystal Palace. Palace were pressing. They were incredible off the ball for the entire match. And when Mateta came on, the game just completely changed as well. His impact off the bench, his hold-up play, his crossing, his decision-making in the final third was amazing. And he gave Palace a real boost when he came on. And Arsenal just didn't really get into the match again. They were wasteful in attack. I mean, I only saw the last sort of 20 minutes of the match because I was doing other things for the rest of the game. But that's what I saw when I was watching. And, the last 20 minutes of the match are the most important 20 minutes of the match, especially if you are leading. And they just were wasteful and they completely threw away 2 points.
Yeah, but then again, those first minutes, they did not prepare, definitely did not prepare any Arsenal fans for the final result. And that's going to be the question to you, Victor. Like the first minutes of Arsenal, they were pretty decent, actually. And not to mention, I would love to do this plug right here. Play of the match by many websites is Jakub Kiwior with a goal in the second minute.
There we go.
Plug in Poland impossible. Oh, come on, mate. Oh, come on.
Michał, just a quick question. Are you from Poland? I don't think you've mentioned it before.
So glad you asked. I'm actually... Yeah, Central Poland proud. Okay, but then again, let's not jump into this. I just want to talk about the overall approach of Arsenal for those first minutes because they looked kind of strong, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, obviously, because they want to clinch that second spot. You want to go into the Champions League thinking we clinch the Champions League for next year, so you don't have to worry about. So then you can play different systems for the rest of the year in the Premier League. But again, I think they failed. The focus was not there, and this is the second time Saliba made a mistake like this. So that if you compare to how that's kind of like what Kiwior was in the past. And now Kiwior hasn't done any mistakes since he came on for Gabriel since his injury. And Saliba is the one that you can rely on. So that's something maybe to worry Arsenal fans. That's how I look at things.
I just want a quick touch on that. We just asked Louis, what do Liverpool have that Arsenal don't? I would put a lot of Liverpool's success in the last few years down to Van Dijk. And him being the central defender, like the captain of the team, the voice at the back. I'd give another example in the Premier League recently, which was Everton played City last weekend, and they were doing very well, shutting up shop for a good 50, 60 minutes. And then James Tarkowski, their central defender, their loud voice at the back, goes off injured. And then they give up like 8 to 9 to 10 chances at the end of the game, and City get the win. I think having that center defender who's the voice at the back of the voice of reason is often the biggest thing in a defense. And I think that voice in Arsenal is more Gabriel than it is Saliba. And I think
100%.
Like
100%.
them losing him for the last few, like obviously they had a great result at Real Madrid, and they could do wonderful in the Champions League, but they will be a weaker side, and I think that showed in the Real Madrid mistake with Saliba, where Vinny got onto him, and today's Mateta was a wonderful finish, but it was a mistake from Saliba.
Yeah, true.
Personally, I would always respect a guy that's way more aggressive, and Gabriel's way more aggressive than Saliba.
Yeah,
So and that's what you need in like big games, and they're probably you're gonna see that in the Champions League. I think that's what Arsenal's gonna miss against PSG in those 2 games.
To be honest,
To
Eshan, I
have
was
someone
kinda,
someone to bite like that, and they won't have that.
You know what, Eshan? I was kind of expecting this quote that you would bring up many times during the discussion of offenses win the games, but the defenses win the championships, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I know this quote was thanks to you bringing it up many times. So, but it's true. It is actually true, and I absolutely agree with the fact that actually, to be honest. Just speaking seriously for a moment, Polish pride aside, let's pretend that Kiwior is not Polish, okay? I hope this is gonna smoothen it up for Louie there. So okay,
I'm not complaining, mate.
Oh, sure. So when you have like this comparison of Saliba and Jakub Kiwior, out of those two, like if we were to have this conversation 3 months ago, like, how many of you would actually put Kiwior over Saliba in this conversation?
No, absolutely
None, right?
not.
Exactly. And yet, like, look what's happening. That Jakub Kiwior is actually growing to become like one of the, maybe not one of the like base centre backs at Arsenal, because Gabriel's still going to be better. But I think Saliba, like, we can already start questioning his position in the starting 11. Isn't that right, Eshan?
I would not say that. To be
No?
honest, I would. I think
no way.
Saliba's had a rough patch, but I think more now than ever we're in such a reactionary state of the internet and the Premier League. We can say, oh, they do this, but we think to John Terry, Rio, Vidic, these like players. Vidic at the start of his Premier League reign was horrific. Like he came in, just did not have the physique, had some of the aggression, but was not a Premier League defender. So I think Saliba's obviously at a further point of that journey.
You need games. That's what you need. As a center back, you need consistency. You need to have that.
Exactly.
And that's why Kiwior is playing with Saliba. They haven't been rested since Gabriel's injury. So that's what puts Kiwior where it is right now, because you need that consistency.
I'd just like to say this. He's 24 years old. He's still young, and he's still got a lot of career ahead of him. And the way that you overcome this is by playing through these rough patches. I mean, it's just that, we've seen what he's capable of, and he just needs to find his way back to that top level again. And he's struggling with new company in defence. When he was at his best, it was Ben White at right back, and it was Gabriel next to him. And this is also the first season with Lewis Skelly, so it's a new defence with Arsenal, and it's a transitional period for their defence at the moment. Coping without having their key players there, but you can't put all of the blame on Arsenal's defence on one player having a couple of bad passes and so on. Maybe today's result, but overall their defence over this time has been absolutely incredible. And with these young players who are going through rough patches, you'd still want them to play more. I mean, if you're a Chelsea fan, do you want Cole Palmer to be dropped at the moment? No, because you know what he can give you. Same with Phil Foden for Manchester City. I know he's had a rough patch, but you still want him out on the pitch to give you that sort of... to give you those shots that he does from the outside of the box. Saliba will still make those tackles, and he made a very good block right at the end to deny Ismail Assar a last-minute winner for Palace. So if you're basing someone's entire form or entire position in the squad off a couple of mistakes, then, that's very harsh.
Well, I have a feeling that Manchester United has fully implemented the philosophy of couple mistakes do not make a player, and see where they are. But
look at how good Maguire's been for Manchester United this season.
Yeah, but I kind of meant Diogo Dalot, to be honest. But okay, whatever. We're not talking about Manchester United. Let's focus on Crystal Palace a little bit, because as much as we're focusing on the fact that Arsenal blew bottled another, like almost like they gave those 3 points away just like that, based on some really like simple mistakes. Let's just focus on how Crystal Palace have how they performed on the game. And here I've got another stat for you there. 27 since Oliver Glasner's first Premier League game in charge of Crystal Palace. Only Alexander Isak with 32, Erling Haaland with 31, and Mohamed Salah with 30 have more Premier League goals than Jean-Philippe Mateta with 27.
Wow.
So I think that just goes to show you how Glasner has successfully let's just say balanced the squad and basically made a guy like Mateta a star. Victor, question for you there. How did you like overall the Crystal Palace performance at the Emirates?
I liked it. Having in mind that have the game on Saturday, game of the season, it was a good performance. The problem with Mateta is he's still not 100% fit. He hasn't played more than 60 minutes since he came back from the injury. So this is like they're building his fitness up, and hopefully now it's time for him to play 90 minutes on Saturday. But again, he played like 55, 57, 45 minutes, and then today he played like 30, less than 30 minutes. So yeah, so
I think it was less than like 15 minutes.
Yeah, he came on in the 80th minute.
80th minute, yeah.
You can tell by his running right away. He gets super tight in the first half in the last few games. So they want to kind of keep him in a good shape for Saturday. And that was the goal, going from the injury to this moment. So,
absolutely.
yeah, pretty solid. Crystal Palace has really nothing to play in the Premier League. I mean, they're 4 or 5 points, but again, they need to be done first with this game on Saturday, and then they can go forward from there. But this is the game they worry about.
Yeah. So that basically, like, once guys from Aston Villa, like if they wanted to review Arsenal Crystal Palace tactically, Eshan, question to you: what is the one thing that Aston Villa would have to watch out for in the FA Cup against Crystal Palace in the semi-final?
One, I would say that they play a very unique system with, and they're flexible. They can play 4 at the back and 3/5 at the back. They're also like, the rotation is quite underrated in Crystal Palace. Like today we saw Justin Devaney play like 80 minutes.
That's crazy.
I don't know if he's played much this season.
He scored 1 goal earlier in the Premier League this season. It might have even been on his debut.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard much of him since, to be honest.
But the fact that they can rotate like that is kind of crazy, and it shows the might of the Premier League, that a team in 12th or 13th is able to like rotate squad like that. And I think that is something that Aston Villa have been notorious for this season, but people probably wouldn't expect that from Crystal Palace on paper.
There you go. Well, so we're gonna discuss Crystal Palace game against Aston Villa. We're gonna preview, like, of course, as well as other FA Cup semi-finals. I think we've said enough about Arsenal Crystal Palace game. Arsenal blowing the lead for the 9th time this season in the Premier League, as the sponsor number 9 told us. Let's move on from this game and let's look at the brighter scheme of things, because I think we are well into that part of the season where individual games no longer matter this much, and we just look at the brighter perspective. But before that, let's listen to the first ad, which is Bioniq.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right level to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Thank you, Bioniq, for sponsoring our podcast. You are listening to Daily English Premier League podcast provided to you by Global Sports Podcast Network. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what we can expect from all of those perturbations. And there's something that the Tigers love the most, right? So just predictions and what's going to be the final position of all of the Premier League teams. We know something, so let's just start with the title race. And what we know that thanks to the draw that we discussed already, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, 2 goals each, the only hope for the Gunners to somewhat have any chance to clinch the title would be for them to win all of the games and for Liverpool to lose all of the games. And of course, and also by doing that, bettering the goal difference of Liverpool. Louie, I'm not going to ask you whether that's possible because we already know your position on it. It's not possible, Spurs, whatever, blah blah blah, whatever. Sorry, man. So let's ask the more non-biased experts, Manchester United fans, Victor and Eshan. What are the prospects of Arsenal? Actually, achieving the impossible.
Zero.
Less than zero.
Less than
Under
zero.
the
Do you know
ground.
what? I will say this. I think there's more chance of Arsenal bottling second place. In fact, there's actually quite a good chance because if you look, City have won their last 3 games. Arsenal have won 2 of their last 5. So City could actually catch them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at their schedule, they have Bournemouth, which is solid. You have Liverpool, you have Newcastle. That's going to be a game that's going to be huge for Newcastle. Yeah, and then Southampton last game. Okay, yeah. I mean, they'll get Champions League, but the second place, after dropping 2 points today, it's going to be tricky, especially if they make it to the final. Because if you make it to the Champions League final, then you have to combine your teams every round. So.
Absolutely.
That's going to be there.
And City have Wolves next, who have lost 4 of their last 5. So,
although they're getting better, they did.
Oh no! I was looking at the wrong thing. No, Wolves have won their last 5. Never mind.
Yeah.
Very
I was
opposite.
like,
Yeah, no, I was looking at the wrong team in the day. I was thinking, hold on, I swear Wolves were doing very well. No, that'll be a good game actually. City versus Wolves, 2 of the most informed teams at the moment.
Absolutely. Eshan, I would just like to ask you a little bit of a trivia question.
Okay.
You might already know the answer because I was just advertising it like crazy in our private chat. This season that we've got right now and this season before that, they've got one thing in common. That at the end of the season, one team in particular could be the one to actually hand the trophy to the upcoming champions. Last season, they handed that to Manchester City. And this season, they are on the way to handing it to Liverpool. Eshan, what on earth am I talking about? What team am I talking about?
Oh, the team that I hope doesn't win the Europa League this season.
Which is?
Tottenham Hotspur.
Tottenham Hotspur. Ding, 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 ding. Absolutely correct answer. And to be honest, that is such an irony of the fate, that Tottenham, they are super close to greatness, but the only way how they can be close to greatness is by giving the title to the upcoming champions. Last season to Man City, this season to Liverpool. But they're doing it out of spite to Arsenal. So
yeah,
I guess there is some North London derby consistency, isn't there?
At least they're going to see the trophy up close.
Yeah,
it's going to be there for them.
Yeah, it will be like Scotland losing to France in the Six Nations to hand to France over England. So
absolutely,
it will be a little bit of a softener for them.
Yeah, but is there going to be another drama on Twitter or now X, formerly Twitter, about Ange Postecoglou doing everything he can to to lose that game against Liverpool? Are we just going to have a replay?
Listen, this is why I hate Twitter. It's just full of awful people who just make conspiracies out of nothing.
But it wasn't just Twitter, though.
Okay, but even so, it's Twitter people who do that sort of thing because Ange will he will never ever try and lose a game. And if you're a Premier League footballer and you're trying to lose a game, then you're in the wrong job and you don't belong in the Premier League. You have to go for everything. And Spurs, although they can't be relegated now, I think. I mean, it would be some sort of miracle if they could, but I don't think it's possible for them to be relegated. Mm-hmm. They still want to win every game, and these players still want to get their win bonuses as well, because that's in their contracts. It's all part of the incentive of them to win these matches. And I know that their minds are probably on the Europa League. I mean, they've got a ticket to the final basically because I know it's Spurs, but they really should be beating is it Bodo Glimt in the semi-final, whoever it is they're playing. But it's an opportunity for them to perform in a match that the world will be watching. This is the match that could win Liverpool the league, and they will want to make an impression.
Absolutely. Victor, what are your thoughts there? Because unfortunately, like, there is some sort of like tribalism thing going on, not only between Tottenham and Arsenal, just overall, that the fact that the well-being of your team is not as important as the honor of, like, in this, like, a Tottenham Arsenal rivalry. Like, what do you make of it? Like, will Ange Postecoglou survive that?
He's not gonna bench his good players, his best players, because there's a huge gap. You also want to keep your players fit and as sharp as they can be. So I think he's gonna get a really good lineup against Liverpool. It's not gonna be. I still think Liverpool's gonna win it with a lot of scored goals. At least they're gonna score at least 3 goals, but Tottenham will play their strongest team.
Absolutely. Eshan, your thoughts?
I think back to the City game last year. I think that was the beginning of the end for Ange, because I think he just saw how deep the media circus goes and how, like, he was getting asked that question the whole week leading up to it, and then he'd hear Spurs fans actually echo sentiments, saying that we want to lose the City, like we want, like, which I think for any top manager, any top player, is like an abhorrent, sickening thought. To like purposely lose a game.
And when they were losing, weren't they chanting as well?
That Son miss gonna haunt me forever. That was for a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
That was for a lot of money for me.
Yeah. I commented on that game. I remember that was just awful.
That was quite the match. I'll be really interested to see if Brennan Johnson and Dominic Solanke start, because they didn't start in the last game. And I mean, I would just be really interested to see if Matthijs Tel plays well, because we all know his capabilities, and in my opinion, he is the biggest underperformer in that Tottenham side at the moment, because he hasn't done much at all this season. And we all saw the quality that he had in Bayern last season. He was one of the most promising youngsters in the world. So it's kind of like, you know when you really, really support a player, but they don't play for your team. I'm kind of like that with Matthijs Tel, because I really want to see him fulfill his potential in the same way that I want Ansu Fati to fulfill his potential. It's just, you can see the vision, but it's not quite happening at the moment.
Absolutely. You know what?
It's never going to happen for Ansu Fati. Sorry to disappoint you.
I know. He started last night,
so there's a little bit.
Let's move on. Let's move on from the discussion about the title race, because I'm pretty sure there's nothing else left to say. Because Louie, you said it yourself. Liverpool are the champions. When your time, yay! You've already said it.
Okay, thank you. Now we can move on.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to something which is far more interesting, because a lot of things could change in that race, which is the race for Europe, ladies and gentlemen. And here, the only teams which are assured of European football are Liverpool and Newcastle. Liverpool, because they cannot now finish any lower than third, and Newcastle because they've already won the Carabao Cup final, which secures for them either Champions League or Europa League at the very least. So actually, that means that even Arsenal could get dropped out of any European football, like, based on what I can see here. Guys, who do you think will clinch those last European spots at the end of the season? I'll start with Victor.
What a question.
I can't see Forest hanging into top 5 at this point. They drop points when they shouldn't. I told you this months ago that Newcastle will eventually finish above Forest, and I think that's still going to happen. But now, you have everyone pretty much in the race with nothing else to play. I mean, Aston Villa, okay, they have the FA Cup. Chelsea will throw everything on this top 5. Newcastle, you have City with FA Cup in this. I don't see Forest. Forest going to finish 6 or 7. And I don't know who's going to finish 5th. I think City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle's going to be 4, and then it's going to be either Chelsea or Aston Villa for Champions League.
Before I move on to another question,
Newcastle is too good to not be in top 5. They're gonna be above Chelsea, I think. So
okay, let's just before I move on to another question, like we're still staying within the race for Europe question. Let me just read a little slight paragraph from the Premier League website about the FA Cup having an impact, because that is actually pretty interesting. So the remaining 4 sides in the FA Cup could all aid the quest for 10 teams reaching Europe. Forest, Man City, and Villa are all in the race to qualify for the Champions League via their Premier League position. And if any of those clubs were to achieve that and win the FA Cup, their reward for the latter, a Europa League place, would be passed to the next highest team that have not already qualified for Europe. Louis, what does that mean for this entire, for those entire permutations about who's going to make it to Europe, who's going to make it to Champions League, Europa League, and so on?
It's very interesting because, I mean, Chelsea aren't in it, but they also have the Conference League to focus on. Newcastle don't have anything else to focus on at the moment, so I think, as you said, Victor, I think they'll get it. I mean, the FA Cup this weekend is going to be so telling to what happens to the rest of the season, because I think whoever's out of that will fight tooth and nail for the rest of the season. So all eyes on this weekend, basically.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that this won't change much for the FA Cup, because you still have that's just one game, and then the final is May 17th. So there's so much time until that final. It's not like the Champions League that in the next 10 days, those are a huge game for Arsenal's.
Well, I don't know, because City are probably going to qualify in the top 5. I mean, that's probably going to happen. But Forest, it's 50-50, and they're playing each other this weekend. So I disagree with you, Victor. I think
I'm talking about Champions League. I'm not talking just Euro. I'm just talking about strictly Champions League.
Well, strictly champion. Yeah. I suppose, yeah.
But for Europe, okay. For Europe, you have a case, but for Champions League, I don't think it's going to change much.
It's such a good race.
Extra game.
Just on another note, just the fact of Manchester City still having a fighting chance to qualify for the Champions League after such a horrible season is just beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me. I mean, Eshan, what do you make of it? Because if there was in any other given season of the Premier League, Man City would struggle to clinch at least that 5th position that according to old rules would mean that it wouldn't be the Champions League football, but it would be the Europa League football only. So, Eshan, what do you make of this?
So I think this goes back to how competitive the league has been. The reason that Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton are going down isn't just because they haven't performed worse than the rest. Every other team is nearing 40 points, I'm pretty sure. What are West Ham's at 36 points, and we have 5 games to go, and that's the next closest. And the 40 point mark is supposedly the golden number, right? So seeing that we have 5 games to go and all these teams have that many points shows you how many teams have dropped points at the top, and that's the reason that City, Forest, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa are all still competing for Champions League. It's not just because we have the extra place. It's that we've dropped so many points along the way.
Yeah. You know what, guys? I actually wanted to talk about FA Cup at the end, but actually, I think that going back to FA Cup, because in between, I still wanted to talk a little bit about the relegation battle and the survival battle for staying up in the league. But since we're already touching on FA Cup, let's just move it right here and let's slightly discuss the semi-final ties for this. Those semi-final ties for FA Cup. Out of those 4 teams, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, and Manchester City, which one of those clubs cannot afford to drop out of the race for the FA Cup? Looking at Europe.
Any of them, really.
All of them.
Well, if you're talking about just Europe, then I suppose you could say Villa. But I think all of them will really... I mean, this is such a huge opportunity for all 4 of these. The fact Palace are playing at Wembley again in the FA Cup, something that they haven't done since 2016, I think, when Lingard scored in the final in extra time against them. And I just remember, because I live in South London, and driving down the streets, you'd see Crystal Palace flags on people's windows and all of this. This is a huge deal. The FA Cup is the oldest football cup competition in the world. People underestimate the importance of this trophy. Maybe it doesn't give you as much money as winning the Premier League or the Champions League, but the novelty of it is still there and will always be there. People forget that this used to be the only live televised match in the 90s, even going back in the calendar. You'd get match of the day, sure, but this it being at Wembley in front of 90,000, half of that stadium is bigger than Crystal Palace's stadium by some distance.
Yeah.
So the opportunity of it is absolutely huge, and it's such an interesting one this year because the only team we expect to be this far are Manchester City, but Villa have a really, really good chance. They've played some astonishing football recently.
Yeah.
Palace, I mean, had an awful start to the season, but have somehow turned it around this year. Maybe gone off the boil a little bit recently, and then you got Forest. Imagine Forest win a trophy this season. They deserve it. I think if there's,
It can
I think
be
if there's
any of these
game,
four.
I know, but if you're,
At
I
this
think if
point.
you're looking at any of these teams to win a trophy this season, you're looking at Forest and thinking they probably deserve it more than anyone else for the performances they've put in and the way they have turned things around from being a relegation contender last season. It's amazing, and I'm so excited. I mean, it's the second most thing I'm excited for this weekend for sure.
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of stand corrected from what I would say earlier about Nottingham Forest, because I remember it was actually the very first episode that I made here for Daily English Premier League. It was along Mikey and Eshan, by the way. I don't know, Eshan, whether you remember it. And the question was, I think from Mikey, whether Nottingham Forest is a Champions League team caliber. And I said that absolutely, because it looked at that point as if they would just really secure that at least top 4 spot. And Eshan, you said, I beg to disagree. They're just going to suffer from shortage of squad, shortage of freshness. And lo and behold, you know what? The pundit doesn't think. The pundit just knows. So, Eshan, I stand corrected.
Give
My
them
money is
some
on
credit.
Aston
well,
Villa.
I mean, I think I said
That's
that
a
with
good
the
shout.
caveat of they're an amazing squad, you know?
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying that they're a bad squad. I'm just saying that you were right in saying that North Forest would lack freshness at the end of the season, and then they would actually struggle for
it happens
for
to
a
every
decent place in
team.
the league.
Like,
Are you guys ready for this? Game week 38, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea. I just realized that. That's going to be the game.
If you look at Forest's schedule for the rest of the season in the Premier League, Brentford at home, Palace away, Leicester at home, West Ham away, Chelsea at home. They can definitely qualify for the Champions League. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're disrespecting them this much, considering the performances they're one of the only 2 teams to beat Liverpool this season. Let's not forget that. And it was at Anfield. And this is the same team. It's the same team that did that. So I don't want to hear any
part if they don't do it and they beat Liverpool.
I'm really rooting for Forest. I think they're a historically successful team that belong to be at this level.
Actually, let's just suppose that Nottingham Forest win the FA Cup. That means that if they were to stay within the top 5 in the Premier League and won the FA Cup, that means that the Europa League spot from clinching the FA Cup title would go to the next highest ranked Premier League club, which was not secured. Which did not secure the European football after this season. So looking at the stance of it now, I think it would be, if I see it correctly, would be Fulham, right? Because we still have that another place in European football after the Carabao Cup final. Newcastle, they currently sit 5th. So Bournemouth and Fulham will also be granted European football. I think that's how it works, right?
But then you're going to have one other team. So it's probably
so
going to be
I think
7.
it's so I did
even 7th.
Number 7 will be the next one
on Monday
because place 7th is granted the Conference League qualification. So Aston
Villa, is there not changed this season? I thought you're right. 6th gets Europa League, 7th gets Conference League, but but also it's reserved for 7th is also reserved for the Europa League spot, assuming someone who has already qualified for Europe, as long as it's not the Conference League, gets in that spot. So, if Crystal Palace were to win the FA Cup, then it would go to, as it stands, Aston Villa.
Absolutely. So a lot of, I guess, Bournemouth and Fulham, they will be rooting for anyone from top 5, actually, top 5, top 7, winning the the FA Cup, because then that would allow them for European football next season. Okay, you know what? Since we're slightly running out of time, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to have to shut this discussion down. Let's move on to our last ad of this episode, which is Zencastr, and then we will go back to perturbation time, prediction time, but this time about the very bottom of the league table.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
Thank you, Zencastr, for allowing us to record our podcast here. You're using your platform. You are listening to Daily English Premier League podcast provided to you by Global Sports Podcast Network. Now, somebody would say that maybe there is no use in talking about the survival battle, about avoiding relegation, because 2 of those spots have already been decided. But there are still some things to play for. For example, for the last Southampton, because they currently sit last with 11 points, and what they play for, maybe it's not going to be super important, but could be still some honor-saving battle, because they're still trying to avoid the unwanted record for the lowest ever points tally in a Premier League season. Derby County finished with 11 points in the season 2007-2008. So the Saints only need 1 more point to better their total. So this is what Southampton play for. As far as Leicester, their relegation was confirmed on Sunday, April the 20th, when they lost to Liverpool, and that actually confirmed their place as the second relegated team. What about Ipswich? Because Eshan, I think you already said that Ipswich, they basically are confirmed as the third relegated team. But maybe there is some chance for them still.
Unfortunately, no. I don't think there's any discussion, because 5 matches to go, 15 points down. So it's pretty much the same situation as Arsenal, where it's just goal difference and prayers.
They can only match
I appreciate you trying to make
points.
this. I appreciate you trying to make this a little bit interesting, but it's not working. I'm afraid.
I
think the most exciting
20 goal swing, which is
Also, I think the most exciting thing to me, looking at the bottom half of the table, is the fact that Everton and Manchester United could finish below Wolves. The team that we were all expecting to get, well, not all of us, but I was certainly expecting them to get relegated earlier this season. But they're on the same points. 13th, 14th and 15th, all on 38 points. The difference is Wolves have won their last 5 games. And used to say that they're not going to do it again because they've got Leicester City next. United have got Bournemouth. Everton have got Chelsea. So Wolves could easily leapfrog United and Everton
You
this
are
weekend.
way too excited over this stuff, really.
You
You do realize that this season was really like the worst season in Man United history. We already down. What's the point of beating a dead horse?
Beautiful, absolutely sensational. Because
beautiful to beat a dead horse. Okay, great, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, beautiful for you to jump on the bandwagon 10 years ago and support them. And quite frankly, I'm enjoying this downfall, and long may it continue. Build that circus and play in it. You're playing like a team that belongs there at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. We hope for some changes in the.
Sorry, I just wanted to get that out of my system.
Yeah, I know. And to be honest, let's just hope that next season will be better. But okay, no, let's not talk about Man United. We already secured a survival in top flight. We're no longer under the threat of being relegated. So,
can be worse, Michał. Can be worse.
I know that it can be worse, but I just do not want to get myself more depressed than I already have to be as a Man United fan. So West Ham United, their remaining games: Brighton, then Tottenham, Manchester United away, then Nottingham Forest at home, and they finish with facing Ipswich Town away. And at the same time, like Ipswich Town, facing Newcastle, Everton, Brentford, Leicester, and West Ham at the end of the entire season. So maybe I'll ask another question then. Is there a chance of West Ham's form going completely down the drain and just fighting for survival in the last fixture?
Do you know what? I just don't understand why they hired Graham Potter. That made absolutely no sense to me because he's not a proven manager. He was good at Brighton, but that was a team that was tailor-made for him because Brighton is just a system. They are a Moneyball team. They do their research and look at the managers who bring the style of play that suits their players. And I just think taking him out of Brighton kind of takes a fish out of water. And while they probably will survive, in fact, they're 99.999% sure they're going to survive. I look at this West Ham team, I look at the quality of their players, which is amazing. I just wonder why they're 17th. I'm worried about their next season because they need a manager who knows how to deal with these players and turn losses into results. So, and we all saw what Fulkrug said after their draw with Southampton. He was furious, and I look at that team. Paquetá, Kudus, Bowen, and Fulkrug as a front four, and they're drawing with Southampton, the worst team as it stands in Premier League history, alongside Derby County, and the earliest team to be relegated by date in Premier League history. They're above this. Their team from back to front. I mean, we've seen how good Wan-Bissaka's been. Max Kilman is a fantastic player in defence. Emerson, another fantastic player in defence. Why are they so bad? They're the biggest disappointment by far in the Premier League this season. So maybe you could say Spurs or Leicester, but I think this was going to be. If you remember, before the season, everyone was predicting them to finish in a European spot. So, yeah, no, they won't get relegated. I think we all know that. But I think they are a team that really needs open heart surgery this summer.
Absolutely. And to be honest,
West Ham always has just small periods of playing great football and then it disappears. And every time I watch them, it's like they're not running enough. They're not pushing enough. They just sit back and just wait for something to happen. And you concede a goal like that against Southampton. So what do you expect?
Well, they will have a chance of a rehabilitation as they take on Brighton, and just 1 point will secure West Ham their survival and them performing at the top flight next season, and will confirm the tractor boys, as they are called. I hope, at least. Actually, they'll confirm the relegation. So, what other games can we look forward to? So, of course, Liverpool Tottenham. That could be the great coronation when Zadok the Priest will be played at our podcast right afterwards. This time in full version in honor of Liverpool. We'll do that. For Nottingham Forest taking on Brentford, Bournemouth taking on Manchester United, Wolverhampton taking on Leicester, Southampton taking on Fulham, Newcastle versus Ipswich, Brighton versus West Ham, and Chelsea taking on Everton. Apart from Liverpool Tottenham, what other games can be actually exciting?
I think Newcastle Ipswich is going to have a lot of goals. I think Newcastle is going to concede against Ipswich. It's going to be like 4-2 or something.
Okay, Eshan?
I was actually also going to say Newcastle Ipswich because I think Chelsea and Villa are going to miss out on Champions League football, and I think the result that you could trace Villa's season back to is the 1-1 draw at home against Ipswich. Like that, turning that into 3 points would make their run in 100 times easier. And if Newcastle don't win this game, there's going to be a lot of question marks from the press of, oh, will they make top 4? Will they make top 5? It needs to be a win. It can be nothing else aside from a solid win.
Okay. No. Louie, what kind of game are you looking most forward to, and why is it Liverpool Tottenham?
Well, as I've mentioned earlier, the FA Cup semi-finals will be amazing. Liverpool Tottenham, obviously, 1 point for Liverpool wins them the league, and we'll look back on this season as one of the biggest sort of underdogs before a ball was kicked. No one was predicting us to finish even second, and we've won the league. I say what you want about injuries, say what you want about a transitional period for Manchester City, but Liverpool was still always there. Liverpool was still always challenging, and the fact we've only lost 2 games up to this point, unbelievable. But if you want me to put that aside, then I think Chelsea-Everton will be quite an interesting one. Everton obviously playing a lot better under David Moyes. Chelsea still a little bit inconsistent at points. It's the early kickoff. Anything can happen, and it's quite a difficult one to predict. So if you're looking for a game that you're not quite sure what's going to happen, Chelsea-Everton is the one to look at.
And
This
there
is the
you
game
go.
where Palmer's going to wake up. Mark my words.
Oh, that would be...
Oh my god.
I'd like to see him just wake up just because it makes me excited for next year's World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember last season, this Chelsea versus Everton's a game that Palmer scored 4 in. So
Oh my gosh, yeah.
maybe memories of
There
last
we
year.
go. Eshan coming in clutch with the excitement there.
Perfect. And to be honest, just to finish off today's episode on a little cheeky comment, I wonder when the English football higher-ups will do something about playing the FA Cup semi-finals and Premier League fixtures at the same day. I think it's ridiculous. Why on earth should we divide our attention on a game of Liverpool Tottenham, which is equally important to the FA Cup semi-final? I will never understand it. Normally, it would be divided. What can I say? I'm just a poor Polish boy who knows nothing about English
The
football.
schedule is too tight. That's the big issue. The schedule
And
is
also,
too tight.
I get that, but also, didn't they put Newcastle versus Aston Villa on a Saturday after they both played midweek when they could have just put it on a Sunday? So, it's not all just about the schedule being too tight. It's also just poor organisation overall.
Yes,
but there we go. That's another topic for another day.
That's another topic for another day, which could be a great topic for another podcast. But until then, thank you guys so much for reviewing the Arsenal Crystal Palace game, for predicting what's going to happen in Premier League. Louie Easton of Liverpool, a very happy man, and is going to be super happy probably come this Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem at all, mate. I'll be there on Sunday to record the Monday review as well once we've won the league.
Of course, like, why should I be expecting anything else? Victor from Chicago, Eshan from LA. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Thank you. So, just like that, thank you for listening, and we'll see you and hear you in the next time. Until then, take care. Bye, guys.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.